Hi, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. This is the show all about sharing experiences of disability within the British higher education system. I'm Kath, and today I'm joined by Rohan. Rohan and I are friends and course mates from our time as undergraduates. He has one of my favourite stories about overcoming the odds. I am genuinely so excited for him to share this story after seeing it unfold over the past couple of years. So, without further ado, Rohan, please can you introduce yourself and share a little about your background in higher education?
Yes, hello, I'm Rohan. Thank you so much for having me on. So, I did English literature at the University of York starting in 2019, and I had a few extensions on my degree, which I'm sure we'll get into in a minute. And I also, for a year, worked as the activities officer at the Students' Union there.
Yeah, you have a really interesting and varied story. I'm really excited to get into it. So, if you're comfortable saying, how did your disability impact your experience in higher education?
Yeah, so I guess the story is I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 11. So all throughout school, I got extra time on my exams, but I didn't really have any other adjustments apart from that. And the main way autism affected my sort of studies was it took me longer to do things than most other people. Um, And after that, when I got the diagnosis at the time, I sort of had a couple of years of therapy and worked quite hard. So when I got to university, I didn't necessarily expect it to have a big impact on things. I just sort of my SSP at the start, student support plan, was just extra time. Um, but I ran into some issues with burnout and anxiety towards the end of my second year, which then went into my third year. So I started realizing I needed more support and got a few extensions, which ultimately resulted in me finishing my degree 1.5 years later than the initial deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we both maybe neglect to mention because we've repressed it is that we did this all in COVID as well. So we started in 2019, end of our first year was COVID. Then we were basically on online schooling for a couple of years. We did one group project, I think, in person together.
Yeah, we did. We did it was the film module where we uh, did a sort of Graham Norton show type thing for a presentation, and we actually got a very high mark on it, didn't we?
We got 76. Yeah, we managed. I managed to get a favor from the student TV, and we used their set, which in COVID was a big achievement. But yeah, no, I you've got a lot of stuff. I think we also share that I have some slower processing as well. I think the difference mine's ADHD first of all, but also yours came a lot earlier to when you were in secondary, whereas mine unmasked during COVID, during uni. So you had that time to prep, but also university, when you remove that structure from formal education, you lose a lot. And I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. It was a case of honestly when I was applying to university, disability didn't really come into it that much. Like I knew about my autism, but I was sort of like, well, yeah, I guess I'll mention it. And in my first year, I knew I had some timed exams coming up, so I made sure I got the extra time. Those ended up getting cancelled because of COVID,
yeah,
but I think it was as we were coming out of COVID in my second year of uni, um, I started really, I guess, feeling the effects of burnout. I've always been someone who's pushed myself a lot, put a lot of pressure on myself, being really, really busy all throughout school. During sixth form, I had a bunch of sort of personal issues with my family and things like that. And I think it all just caught up with me. And even in first year of uni, I put a lot of social pressure on myself. So over time, I think that anxiety just built up. And um, it all came crashing down in a way. I was very fatigued. I couldn't concentrate on my work. I was feeling nauseous, like very, very nauseous. There were some days I couldn't eat. And at the end of my second year, I thought I should take a year out. Um, but I didn't. And the summer between my second and third year, again, I was just so busy. I was doing all sorts of extracurricular things and stuff for my degree, and also had a couple of personal situations that I guess I didn't process properly. And the first term of my third year, I was horrendously ill and just really just couldn't really do anything because of the fatigue, nausea, um, and all of that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you've had quite the experience. I think I saw a lot of it unfold on socials as well. And like, it sounds like you had quite the time. I mean, obviously, you've had like all that big picture stuff. Do you have any maybe particular moments that you think about how your disability affected you in higher education?
I think the moments are more. I remember the feeling I had when I got my first extension in second year, where I sort of dismissed it as, oh, I'm just a bit tired. I'm just feeling a bit anxious, and thought it would be a one-off. And then when it kept happening, I had to realize, yeah, this is to do with autism, and anxiety is often associated with autism. But I kind of had to have that explained to me by the sort of English department's disability officer, going, these two things are linked, and let's get you some extra um, support. And it it was quite confusing. I think I didn't. It was quite a difficult feeling. I remember sitting at my desk just trying to do my coursework, wanting to do my coursework, and just not being able to be able to. Like in school, I never handed in a piece of homework late. I didn't really have um issues with my academia. And I remember there was, I guess, one point in, it must have been November of my third year, which was 2021. Yeah, November 2021. And I reached complete breaking point, and I was sort of on the phone to my parents in tears, just having no idea what to do, where to go, because it was so debilitating to just sit there and not be able to do what I wanted and needed to do. Um, and that's kind of where I guess that could have gone in two directions. And I reached out for help, and then we started kind of sorting it out. I found a therapist. Before that, I tried CBT, uh, and that just didn't work for me. It just didn't really make a difference. I know some people really benefit from it, but I mean, this is the thing with support. Everyone's different, and different things will work for different people. And CBT didn't work at the time. All I was on was a bunch of really strong anti-sickness medication, um, which again wasn't solving the issue. It was just preventing me from feeling sick. It was making me feel a little less sick. But then I did find a therapist. I mean, my mum found a therapist that worked for me, but that process took a long time. I remember, Kath, you saying in the first episode of this podcast, it can take up to 2 years to recover from burnout, and that really was the case for me. And getting over sort of, and after I started to feel better later, that in my third year, I was scared of feeling like that again, feeling sick like I did, feeling um, anxious, and I had real doubts over my own ability, because I'd just been through something that I'd never been through before. I just learned things about myself and how my um, autism works, and how it can manifest into anxiety, that I had not experienced before, even though I'd been diagnosed 10 years ago. Um, so it was a real learning curve, and it really took a while to, I don't want to say fix that, but learn to take care of myself and process how my mind was working in terms of my coursework and my university life.
Yeah, I think we had pretty similar experiences in regards to burnout, to be honest, because I think we had burnout at a pretty similar time. I was really fortunate that I had a really strong support network, but I was also I'd look at my work. I remember at one point looking at my work in the library, coming home because I felt shaky. Another time I came home late, tried to cook myself rice, stared at it while it cooked for 20 minutes, and then it was overcooked. And I had looked at it the whole time. Like, it's not, I think people tend to forget that ASD, like autism specifically, I'm not diagnosed formally, but I've had psychologists tell me that I have it to my face. Is burnout, autistic burnout is such a real thing. I think people normally, you see meltdowns, right? Because they're big outbursts. And that's like a really obvious thing. But I think burnout is a lot more subtle, and I think a lot more malicious in terms of how it manifests. It is if that's what I've been through as well, which I think it might be, and you've definitely been through, it is a brutal experience.
It's horrible because you just, yeah, as I said, I didn't understand what was going on for a while, and I kept trying to push through it.
Totally.
Um, and what I would like to say is, in terms of accessing the support I needed, I was quite
Yeah.
lucky because I had that autism diagnosis, which, you know, some people at university, they don't have that diagnosis. I know that I was lucky that I had it, and when I ran into the issues, I sort of just had to. Well, I called my mum and I was like, "Mum, we need to dig out my autism diagnosis." Um, and that was kind of the university and support systems, because I had that. They said we don't need to do something separate for the anxiety. It can all go under this sort of umbrella of the autism diagnosis. So I was lucky in the sense that I already had that, so I could access the support I needed, which I know isn't the case for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I got diagnosed in my third year, which when you're in a 3-year degree is fun. But the one thing that I did get is I had an ADHD diagnosis in 6 months. Now, when you're going through the NHS, that is very lucky. I called ahead. I had the right to choose system, and I was like, "Hey, I think I had this. I'm also a student. I need this pretty soon." And I had my diagnosis within 6 months. Other people, even at York, who went through that referral process, the right to choose was so popular through COVID that it got closed. So I know people who needed
Yeah,
the support and missed out on the diagnosis because going through normal NHS routes would have taken 5 years, which is longer than their degree. And the semi-private right to choose options had all closed because they were oversubscribed. So
yeah,
yeah, I think both of us were quite lucky, to be fair.
yeah.
Pre-existing diagnosis or not, I think we made it to the other side now. It was a pretty fun, tough 3-4 years, wasn't it? Yeah, we've spoken about this before, but tell you what, let's pull it back for a sec. So obviously we've spoken a lot about your experience. I want to pull it back to the start for a second. So kind of like when you were accessing higher education, how did you find like getting the support you need? I know you mentioned you had a support plan. Did you do like, the disabled students allowance and stuff as well? Like any accommodation adjustments? Is there anything else that helped?
Yeah, so initially when I went to university, I think it was a case of digging out the autism diagnosis, because I had declared it, um, and having a meeting with the department's sort of disability officer, going, is there any support you need? And I think they reached out to me because they knew, but I don't remember fully. And it was just a case of, well, here's my autism diagnosis. Can I get extra time in exams? My, in my first year of uni, that was the conversation when I first went to uni, and they were going through all sorts of options of, we can do this, we can do that, and I was like, no, 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 we'll be good. We weren't
No.
good. Um, and then in my second year, I think I think it was towards the end of my second year when I went back to the disability officer and went, hang on, I was wrong. There's more going on here. Um, that's when he recommended DSA, and I went through DSA then, I believe.
Yeah, because DSA has a couple of extra steps. Because again, going back to formal diagnosis, you need like your school diagnosis doesn't count. Like if someone has like dyslexia or something. So luckily, you had the diagnosis like
Yeah.
100% stamped on paper. So I'm guessing DSA was pretty easy to access.
Again, it was yeah, I had that diagnosis, and I think yeah, I don't remember to be
That's
honest, but
fine.
I think it was. I don't remember needing much more than that diagnosis to yeah access that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, I'll tell you what, let's move on to something a little more fun because I know you were very, very involved with all your extracurriculars and your clubs. So, should we talk about those?
We can do, yeah. So I've always been someone who believes in. I mean, this is also kind of education science as well. That extracurricular activities help you um, overall in your studies. So I've always been someone throughout school who balanced academia with extracurricular activities. I used to play a lot of sports, and then my main hobby became theatre, and I did that alongside my studies in school. At university, so towards the end of my time at school, it didn't happen at school through theatre. I got into comedy, and I started really enjoying that. So at university, the first society I looked for at Freshers' Fair was the Comedy Society. I did have fun with other societies. Shout out York Student Television, YSTV. I did I had some fun with them in first year. Um, but so towards the end of my second year, I, for my third academic year, I became the president of Comedy Society. Um, and that was, yeah, I guess it had its benefits and drawbacks because, as I mentioned earlier, I knew that the best thing for me would be to take a year out. But when these issues happened in at the end of my second year, I had already been elected as president of Comedy Society. So one of the main things that stopped me from taking a year out between my second and my third year was FOMO.
Mm,
It was genuinely I was like, well, I've got this, I'm president of Comedy Society next year. I'd started to make friends with some of the comedy people, which to be honest would have happened a year earlier if it weren't for
yeah.
COVID. Um so yeah, and then in my third year, I mean, we had a great year in terms of Comedy Society. We had people, I guess we had 2 years worth of people because of COVID. So we got big audiences. We had loads of people taking part. But I was unwell. I was really unwell, and I thought, there were some days where I couldn't eat anything. I'd take an anti-sickness tablet and then in the evening go and do a comedy show. And I thought I did that because I thought that would make me feel better. Um, but it just didn't. I know you said this was going to be the fun bit, and
Yeah.
I've turned it into.
No, but
Um,
sometimes that's what it is, isn't it? Like you can feel good in the moment, but if it's not sustainable in the long run, like how is that going to work out?
that was the reality. If I was prioritizing my health, I would have taken a step back from the comedy sock stuff. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. Um, and I loved performing comedy. I loved performing comedy at uni. I still love performing comedy. And I had a lot of fun with the extracurricular stuff, and it kept me very, very busy. And one thing I'd also say is that did not stop me from doing my degree.
Yeah.
My I was having my problems, which stopped me from doing my degree, and I was doing the extracurricular stuff to kind of make myself feel better. But if I didn't have those problems, I would have been doing my degree and the extracurricular stuff no problem like running Comedy Society. And I guess the comedy stuff is probably what led me on to becoming a sabbatical officer um, at the Students' Union, which isn't a year I'll sort of never regret. That was, where I could make a real difference to people, and I had a great year doing that. So I guess everything kind of
Yeah.
works out and manifests
It
itself
always
for
seems,
a reason.
yeah, everything's better in hindsight, isn't it? I think, because I actually wanted to touch on your time as a sabbatical officer, because I know that obviously you took a lot of extensions that ended up running through your year as a SAB, didn't it? So I was wondering how that all worked out for you.
Yes. Yeah. So in my third year, I still believed that I would finish my degree because my initial extension was uh, to August, which is the sort of resit deadline. I wasn't resitting, I was just doing them for the first
Yeah.
time. Um, but I guess it was where my mind was at and me not fully understanding what was going on. I thought I'd be sort of okay to do it, and it's just a small setback. Um, but I really couldn't, even when I was not feeling sick anymore and stuff in my third year, it was still, I still had the issues of burnout and my mind just not being able to function and things like that. So when my first month at the SU, in terms of my degree situation, was really
Yeah.
messy because I kind of went in, um, they were super supportive because I mean the SU has a department for sort of academic
They do,
support.
yeah. They're
Um,
good. Shout out to them.
so fantastic. They're
They're
really
good.
good.
Sorry, go on.
Lovely people. Um, so the CEO of the SU at the time, who was the main person, essentially the line manager for the sabbatical officers, he knew my situation, and so I had a few meetings with him and someone from the academic support at the SU. So I kind of went in going, "Yeah, I'm here. I'm really looking forward to this year. I don't have a degree." Um, and yeah, we kind of had to figure it out. And at that point, I was trying to finish it while doing all my training for this new job with, and it just reached the point where I had to accept that I'm not going to get it done by August. It's just not going to happen. Um, Again, very lucky. I had the advice in the same office as me, where we went through the options and I was scared. I didn't know how the uni would react and stuff like that. Um, but at the end of the day, it was okay. And I got a 1 year extension. Um, so that I've got to say that summer graduate, I know this will probably resonate with a few people. A couple of weeks after that were the summer graduations, and I had to, as a sabbatical officer, sit on the stage in some of the
You were,
graduations. I was given a
yeah,
few.
you were at mine.
Yeah, exactly. I'd done two before that week. The first 2 days where I was in the office watching all the people graduate was genuinely horrible.
Yeah.
I was, almost in tears at my desk. It was so difficult. Um, by the time, because the English one was on the Friday, if I remember
Yeah, because
correctly.
I think so I'd powered through, which ended up making Oxford a fun, fresh hellscape, but that's a story for episode 1.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'd made it through. I felt awful. But I just about made it through. And then I remember seeing you on stage and I was like, I'm just so glad Rohan's here. Like, but we were meant to be in the same ceremony. Because I did combined honours with English and
Yeah.
linguistics. You did straight English. English and linguistics were graduating in the same ceremony. So we were meant to be like sat next to each other almost.
Oh, yeah. So, a lot of my friends like yourself and a lot of my other course mates were graduating, but by the time it got to that Friday, I was numb. All my, I'd cried my tears and whatever. So, um, and when we were selecting which graduation ceremonies to do, I requested to the SU that I do the English
Yeah.
one. And for a while, I regretted it. But when it got to the day, I went, you know what? I'm really looking forward to my friends graduating, and sort of, I wouldn't say I put on a brave face, but I was, you know, um, I remember just being genuinely happy for people, and I had a really nice day. I think I had drinks with a couple of my friends after that ceremony.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but it was tough seeing people graduate initially. The first few days of that week were really tough.
yeah.
Um,
I mean,
um,
I've missed a graduation ceremony. I missed my Oxford graduation because I had to resit a paper. And I managed to like get out of jail free. I didn't have any responsibility. I left Oxford like the day before my ceremony because I just did not want to be anywhere near the city centre because everything's like Oxford's the entire city, right? You definitely faced it a lot more head on than I did. Kudos for that. But I'm guessing that was also, it sounds like it was maybe a little bit of a healing experience for you as well in a way. Some kind of full circle, potentially.
and I guess it made I was sitting there going, when I do finish my degree and graduate, it's gonna feel really, really sweet.
Yeah.
Um, and but anyway, so I got a year-long extension. I actually wanted to make it a 1.5 year
Mm.
extension, which is a bit harder to get. Um, the people around me, like my parents, didn't want me to do
Yeah.
that. Because I was basically going, let me do my year at the SU, then let me finish that, then go back, then finish my assessments. Um, Spoiler alert, that is what ended up happening. um, and I really regret that. I mean, I didn't know better at the time, but I regret that throughout my whole SAB year. And I will say I really enjoyed it. But on a personal level, I had that course situation hanging over me the whole time where at the weekends and some weeknights I was stressed going, I really need to do my degree, but everything is so busy and I'm still struggling to do it. Um, so yeah, I did the SAB year. In all honesty, um, so my degree, I didn't rerun for a second year, but my degree didn't have anything to do with that decision
Yeah.
because I had to make that decision in January ahead of, the SAB year renews in July, I think. Um, but I still thought I will finish my degree by the summer, so this doesn't go into it. So I didn't rerun because I wanted to move back home to London and sort of move on with other parts of my life, even though I really enjoyed the job. That was it. Um, but yeah, I didn't finish my degree by the summer. I sort of went away for the summer doing things like the Edinburgh Fringe and then came back home to London, settled down a bit, and then I think basically from November 2023 to January 2024, that's when I finished my last few assessments, including my dissertation and finished my degree, basically.
Yeah. I don't know if I was really on socials when that happened, but I remember seeing the pictures from your graduation ceremony and I was just so proud. Like, you have been through so much. Like, yeah, dude, I was so proud of you. Tell you what, should we do some
Yeah,
rapid fire questions in a sec? You wrap up. Go for it.
yeah. So I graduated in July 2024, which was really, really sweet. I finished my degree January 2024, which the end of January, oh, that was an amazing, amazing feeling. It was basically a random Tuesday in January, 1.5 years late, but it felt great. And I remember getting my result in a service station in Exeter earlier in the 2024 summer, and I cried in the
It's
service
the only
station
good place
when
to receive results, mate. It's the Exeter service
it's just
station.
outpouring. Yeah, I'm really ashamed of that. I didn't plan to share that. But
No, honestly,
oh,
but it shows that you've like, you know, it's human, right? It happens. And I don't think there's any
It's
shame in
you.
living the human experience. If anything, it just enriches it, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
But if you want to remove anything, edit, just shout. But tell you what, should we do some rapid fires?
you can do.
Right. So, did you experience any instances of maybe your ASD? Was it maybe proving helpful at some points? Obviously, we've focused on a lot of kind of negative stuff so far. If you don't have anything, like maybe it was just entirely disabling, that's fine. But if you have any like positive stuff, that'd be awesome.
I think my ASD. I'm a very meticulous, analytical, sort of perfectionist person, and I think that both worked for and against me at times. Sometimes I like the way I think, sometimes it gets in my way a bit. So I think I always like to answer that kind of question with balance. I'm not someone who will say, it's all good or it's all bad. There's a balance. But I think I'm quite unconventional and creative, so that helped me in my course at times, and also with my degree. And I say this not in an arrogant way at all. My sort of ability to do the work was never quite the issue. There were blockers between that. Obviously, apart from it takes me more time to do things. So, yeah, a bit of both is the answer.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a really, really good response. I like that. Right, let's move on. Next question. Is there anything you wish you'd known about uni before starting?
I think the main thing is it's okay to be yourself, and you will eventually find your people. I think in first year I was forcing myself to be someone who I wasn't. York's not a very diverse place, so I was kind of almost pretending that I was white and British and leaving my culture behind. But and I don't like clubbing, but I went clubbing a lot just to kind of fit in. And I think by the time, especially over COVID, and by the time I got came back at the end of my second year, I realized, no, I'm proud to be who I am with my culture. There's going to be people I find who I can connect with over that, and I don't really have to go clubbing if I don't want to go clubbing. Um, so yeah, and also I guess on a more advice thing, ask for help, like explore the support options. I didn't do that at the start of my first year, and it's okay to do that. You won't get penalized for that. Um, well, especially if you're universities,
Yeah,
as it should be. Um, um, and follow your instinct. I think that's always something I do. It's I didn't go into uni with many expectations of I didn't know what it would be like. So you do have to rely on your instinct a bit, and you've got to kind of trust that at times what's best for you. But I'm glad that I could have gone to sort of Durham. I had an offer from Durham, and my instinct was this wouldn't be I'd have more fun at York. Um, and I did choose the right uni for me, so that was
yeah,
nice.
and it was also a pleasure to know you because otherwise you wouldn't have met at York.
Absolutely.
So, next question. How do you think we can improve the experience of higher education as both individuals and a society?
Higher education, and I guess generally education in schools and stuff, is not designed for people like us, or people with disabilities or other conditions. One question I'd ask is why not make sort of the style of coursework and exams and the deadlines and time given associated with them, why not make them with disabilities and conditions in
Yeah,
mind? Because, if for other people, for people who aren't struggling with any conditions or disabilities, they can leave early. You can hand them in early. And but why do we why do you have to put people through asking for that extra time when you could just give it, and then it's sort of designed for everyone that way. If I phrase that in a way that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, and I guess on a general level at universities, a lot of universities have old buildings and old systems. Accessibility, uh, again, I think we've reached the point where universities know that where they're accessible and not accessible. But and this comes from my experience working at the Students' Union. I had to tell them issues one by one, but I think universities should be able to understand now where they're being accessible and not accessible, and start just fixing them things themselves without being prompted. And the last point I'd make is on a sort of getting to the root of the issue. And this is something I've believed for a very, very long time. In school, edu- um, they should teach about disabilities and mental health conditions and things like that, especially because they're so common.
Yeah.
I don't understand why that is not part of the education curriculum in some way in schools. That would make understanding and a widespread understanding so much better, which can only benefit everyone if there's more tolerance and understanding at school level, and then when you get to higher education, and you can understand more about
Yeah.
yourself through that as well.
Totally. No, I entirely agree with that. Right. I really want to speak about what you're doing now because I think it's really exciting. So, Rohan, what are you up to nowadays? How have your past experiences affected this?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, so I work part-time, just boring admin stuff. So um, and I do stand-up comedy. I am not a professional comedian. I'm trying to get there. So I'm sort of so I do about 3 or 4 gigs a week in London, and sometimes I do my own shows like once a year in the summer. Um, so yeah, I'm doing a lot of stand-up comedy and really enjoying it and really trying to sort of progress and develop as a comedian. um, you can, if you'd like to find out more about that, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. My handle is Rohan Asher _comedy. Um, and maybe I'll be doing a show near you at some point. It's completely possible. But yeah, that's kind of my thing now, stand-up comedy, and yeah, having fun doing
Yeah,
it.
I'm really excited. I think we spoke before about me catching you at a show, hopefully coming up. So hopefully, yeah, I'm really excited to see you soon, mate. Right. Final question. You ready?
Yep.
What is one key takeaway you would like listeners to remember from your story?
It's okay to do things your own way. The people around you might have a lot of opinions. They may talk a lot. Often they'll want the best for you, but you are the best person at understanding yourself. Obviously, listen to your friends and family who understand you well. And ultimately, if you want something, you will get it eventually, but there might need to be some figuring out and some overcoming obstacles along the way. So it is okay to do things your own way. I mean, my story is that I was, a high attaining student. I did a lot of extracurricular activity. I had a lot going for me, and I just struggled. I was struggling under the surface, and it took 1.5, 2 years to really sort those out. And I had to take the alternate route. Um, but ultimately, I ended up with a first class honors degree, and that's now the past. And I'm still managing issues, but yeah, do things your own way. It's okay sometimes.
Yeah, so that was our last question, Rohan. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for kicking off this, the interview bits of HE Enable. This is the first interview. So thank you so much.
I love this podcast. It's a brilliant idea, and yeah, I hope you have. I'm looking forward to hearing the stories of more guests as time
Yeah,
goes
well,
on.
if you know anyone, hit me up. I'd love to have them on. And also, if any of you listening would be interested, there is an email, so it's henabled@gmail.com. You can get in touch if you want to be on the show, share your story. That's something I would absolutely be down to do. But yeah, Rohan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers, have a good one.